Welcome back in, y'all. We are Black Girls Talking TV, where we bring the group chat to life and discuss all your favorite TV shows. Today is all about Bachelor Nation. And so don't forget to hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you can stay tuned to all of our recaps. I'm Victoria. I am a psychologist in New York and Illinois.
And I'm Kamaria. I'm an attorney in the DC area and a pop culture writer. So let's get into this finale. Were you surprised?
Yes and no, okay? Yes, because we were convinced that it was Latia. 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
The producers couldn't cut it no other way. However, when they both went to go visit Grant's mother, father, and sister, first we end with Grant regretting that he said I love you to Latia, right? Mm-hmm. And then we see this interaction where Latia at the end of the date is like, I love you, and I just love when you tell me that you love me. And he seemed a little uneasy. He seemed like he was not jamming too much, like he was a little afraid. And then all of a sudden it's, I love you, I'm in love with you too, Juliana. And Juliana's like, I love you too. And we all giddy and butterflies. And so at that moment I was like, well, I'll be darned. Maybe it is Juliana. Maybe.
Yeah, I had this sneaking suspicion, but it wasn't based on what the show showed me. I didn't even clock that dynamic you just described. I just felt like I kept seeing on social media the Juliana fan base ride so hard, and they were doing it from episode 1. So I kept having it in the back of my mind. I'm like, somebody know a spoiler. Somebody knows a spoiler. And so that part of it doesn't surprise me. But the fact of what they showed on the show, I was shocked. I was like, oh man, like, what is this? Latia's reaction, what were your thoughts on that? Because the internet was interneting and some people didn't like it. Some people were like, yes, queen, yes. I'm on the yes, queen, yes camp. But what were your thoughts on it?
Now, I am usually not the type of person that tells people when they're right or when they're wrong, because do you and do what's best for you. However, this time I'm going to say there was only one way to handle that situation, and Latia did it flawlessly, okay? She did it the correct way. I don't know how anybody would expect her to have any other type of reaction when the rug was literally pulled from up under her feet.
Yeah, I agree. I personally just love to see it. I love that it was so that she had an immediate reaction. Like she ain't wait, she ain't think about it, she ain't craft no long text message. She had an immediate reaction. And someone who struggles with that, like I was like, okay, I'm gonna learn some lessons from Latia today, because she really did that. Like she was very, very clear. She's no, yeah, I think about you differently. You know what I mean? Because what she said, and I'm sure we'll get into it later, but you know, she talked about that transparency piece that was missing, and she was well within her right to call him on that. Like people want us, like as women, sometimes to be super docile about things. She was classy, respectful, but it don't mean you can play her for the fool. So
yeah, I think we all learned something from Latia last night.
Yeah,
and the way that she handled that, because it's not taught to us that we are allowed to speak up, right? And like say what we want, demand what we want. And then she did it in such a respectful way. We usually see these examples where it's so many emotions that are running the situation, but she literally kept her composure. And the fact that everybody's like, not one tear. I'm like, did y'all want the girl to break down onto her knees and beg the man to choose her? No. She literally said, what changed? Because you said it was our emotional connection. And actually, to get to that, I think it was the fact that Juliana might have had sex with Grant in the fantasy suites. I think that's what changed, quite honestly.
Interesting, because you might be right about it, because he did just shift up.
He just shifted. It was an immediate shift after fantasy suites.
You might be right.
Latia had the last fantasy suite. Juliana had the first, okay?
Yeah, that's so interesting, because he didn't have any heavy questions for her in the beginning parts. It was all lovey-dovey. I don't know, maybe, we assumed that we don't know what happened, but It looked like something
Kamaria, we
that
not
happened.
about to act like when you test drive something, it don't change the feelings, baby.
True, true. Like, yeah,
That
no.
man didn't
That is
say he
so
was on a celibacy journey.
true. Yeah, that's so true. But I still stand by. I love the fact that Latia didn't, because I'm like, this man would play to her face. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because he would have still chosen the other girl, Juliana. He could have still chosen her. This is why you don't sleep with nobody who's not committed. So it is what it is. I loved her reaction. I loved her standing up for herself.
Come
And
on
I love her
now.
dress. I loved her dress. She was
Oh, her
stunning.
dress was beautiful. She looked
Mhm.
great.
Giving
Body yaddy
body.
yaddy.
Mhm,
Yes.
mhm. And I just loved, her whole entrance. I mean, except for them not giving her a red carpet or something. The thing was all slippery. I'm like, y'all could have just this could have been a tragedy, but thankfully she knows how to walk in her heels. But yeah, I think ultimately it was really just, to me, there was some level of immaturity on Grant's part about like where he was with regard to a relationship. Not saying he's not a mature adult or a mature man, but just in the context of a relationship, there's growth that happens. And if you're not ready for something, like knowing it and being able to articulate that is very important. I think it's a hallmark of maturity, and I don't think that he was there with that. You started to see it, that he wasn't ready. He thought he was ready. He was talking like he was ready, but he wasn't ready. And at a certain point, it switched for him, and he didn't really communicate that, or not know how to communicate that to Latia. It's just like men sometimes, they kill me. They don't be wanting to face the truth of like the consequences of the situation. And so it feels like sometimes they don't want to let you down, because he was riding so high on a wave with her. He felt like he was on roller skates or something. He couldn't, pause and slow down and be honest
Right.
about where he was, for fear of her being like, oh, you don't like me anymore, or whatever. But it's like, that's a little unfair. Like, you gotta let her know that it may be sort of changing for you, so that she can pump the brakes on her own skates. Like, you
Right.
know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so that's the unfair part.
Yeah. Latia is such a regal woman. She carries herself well. She takes care of herself. We've talked about this, right? Like you said, she's very principled. You can tell she walks and talks with her values in mind. And
Mhm.
so I would feel like any man, especially in this type of setting, when you encounter a woman like Latia, you already know it's not the trophy wife in the sense of she's about to just be at home cooking barefoot and pregnant, but this really is a trophy. This right here
Mhm.
is top tier. And so let me do what I can to get her, even though I
Mhm.
may not be prepared for that
Thank you.
type of woman.
This is also why I'm very glad that she did not, give it up in the
Yeah,
fantasy suites. Do you feel like she had a point about Grant leading her on? Because, yeah.
yeah, absolutely. I feel like in a more traditional situation, right, it would be really easy. And I'm not even going to say it's not easy to throw these terms around now, because absolutely there was some deceit going on in this. But I think it would be easy in a more traditional setting to say, like, he might have been being manipulative, or he was love bombing her. And some might even say gaslighting a little bit to make her believe so much that she was going to be chosen. Because when she was going down that list of things that we didn't even see, we
Mhm.
didn't see, hey, here's a journal, write me letters in it so that we can read it at the end of this. We didn't see that in the conversation with moms during that first one-on-one date, that Grant was reassuring her mother that
Mhm.
it was her at the end, and we can cut the cameras and throw it
Yeah.
all out because it's
And the
it's
night
you.
before. The night
Yes, and
before.
the night before.
Man, it's
I'm so
just,
ready to get engaged to you.
yes, can't wait. Like, it's like, I agree with what she said about the transparency piece. It's like, you are not being transparent and showing that you're conflicted, showing that there's still a decision for you. And so I think that's what some of the people are missing. That when
Yeah.
people who are like, oh, it's just a game, she picked him, he picked her, or whatever, it's a
Come on
show.
now.
But
Come on.
it's like you have to still care for people's feelings, and you
Yeah.
have to be clear with them and don't set them up to think they're being picked. There's a very different way to embrace someone and show them that you're there for them and show them that you care without and show them that you're in love or whatever without being like it's you. You the one, you the one, you the one, you the one. You know what I mean? Like that's
Right.
basically what he's doing or what he has done. And I think she was well within her right to say that and call him on that. So,
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm glad.
because she, if I recall correctly, she when they were on the couch, she was like, "You're the one who was trying to continue to further the relationship. You kept pressing the gas pedal when I was trying to press the brakes, and you were afraid that I was gonna leave this situation. So when people are like, she knows what she signed up for, it's like." She knew what she signed up for. Grant is the one who's acting like he didn't know what he signed up for, right? Like
Mhm.
he's the one leading this woman on, knowing that he can have the potential to have all of these different connections, despite her saying, "Hey, don't make me promises that you
Mhm.
can't keep, because I'm not asking for those promises,
Mhm.
but you
Yeah.
want to keep giving them to me." And so
Yeah.
it's not that you had feelings for other women. It's like you said, it's the transparency, because you did not let up. You kept saying, "Let's go, let's go, let's go." And now I feel like I have to catch up to your feelings. Absolutely not fair. And so she has a point. Grant was leading her on, and her reaction at the very end was the perfect reaction to being
Yeah.
led on in that way, because she was not, no, y'all acting like she was a level 10 crash out. Baby wasn't even a level 1 crash out, okay?
Right. Very respectful. It was just very clear. Like women have the ability to be clear and not be just because you hurt your feelings doesn't mean that we're wrong, you know?
Right.
Just because you didn't like what a woman said doesn't mean that she's wrong. And um so yeah, kudos to her.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. I feel bad for Latia, and at the same time, I'm very, very happy for her, because she deserves so much better in terms of a man who is
Mhm.
well equipped and ready
To be yeah,
to be what
for what
she needs, right? I think
mhm.
very much so. She is someone that Grant needed, and Grant would have developed and grown a lot being with a woman like Latia. However, on
Mhm.
the other end of it, I feel like Latia would have been the person in the relationship taking on more of the mental load. She would have taken
Mhm.
on more of the emotional load, which
Mhm.
oftentimes makes women very tired in relationships,
Mhm.
because their partner is not where they are at. And so, in that regard, I'm very happy for Latia. She seems like she's well aware of what she wants, but she
Mhm.
doesn't seem like the person, at least this version of her that we know of her, who is going to be in a relationship where she is not getting what she wants and what she feels like she deserves. And so, I feel
Mhm.
like the door is now wide open for her to get exactly what is God calling for her. And
Yeah.
Grant and Juliana, all power to them and their union. Yeah.
Yeah. What'd you think about like the issue around the kids and him not wanting that as early because it just came out of nowhere. I thought he wanted exactly what she wanted, so I'm just unclear, and I guess that speaks to also the immaturity in my view because it's like I think he thought he wanted this. But I think what he really wanted was companionship and he didn't want to be lonely. And he saw that in the future. Like in the future, I want, family and kids, but like not right now. But I think that at the beginning of this process, it felt like it was all right now, And
Yeah.
then I think he he just wasn't clear, didn't know what he wanted for real until he started moving forward in terms of like what he was ready for, what he wasn't ready for. So I was surprised that that didn't come up sooner, but I see that's what I see as the reason why it didn't.
Well, multiple things didn't come up enough. You also didn't bring up the Mormon religion enough, at least from what we
Mhm.
saw in the
Mhm.
conversations. Um, Night one, Grant said, "I'm looking for my wife. I'm looking
Mhm.
for the mother of my children." And that was something that he led on with. I mean, our first couple of recaps, we talked about this. He wants a mother,
Yeah,
he wants a wife, right? Like,
yeah,
because that is what he was leading with so much.
yeah,
Like, your first group
yeah.
date is to a
The kid.
basketball game with kids, because you want to see how somebody
Yeah.
is with kids. So for you to be
Yeah.
like 2 years isn't enough. And then when he what was it, met with the dad and was like, she's 31 and she wants kids right now. I'm like, you're 31. Like,
I know.
what? You said it like she's like 46 like
Yeah.
ready to, you know what I'm saying, to start this journey as if it's such an issue. I'm like, what do you expect someone who is 31 to be saying that they want when they come on this type of show? Not to mention, you were a bachelor for another bachelorette who was also ready to be married and start life and start a family together. You came into this situation saying that's what you wanted. And I think once he was presented with options that allowed him to slow down after entering the situation and it's so intense, I think his emotions were like, you know what, buddy? This is too much. I need like time to pause, to go from this very intense situation to an engagement, to a marriage, to kids within 2 years. It feels like a lot, and I feel like he should have been more honest with himself as as this was like unfolding for him. But I think in the beginning it is what he wanted, but once all this pressure is going on, and I feel like he now is like, you know what, I need to press the brakes just a little bit and slow my life down. And I think Juliana offered that to him, which is ultimately why he went with Juliana.
Yeah. Did you feel like he was wrong for being torn between the two? Do you feel like, because Latia made that comment about every woman deserves for their man to know without a shadow of a doubt that they want to be with her, and I agree with her. You know what I mean? Because it was a little like it makes Juliana's story kind of tainted a bit, because it feels like everyone had to see this love story that her kids one day gonna see this. It's like, okay,
if they make it that far.
Oh yeah. True.
Yeah. So the thing,
I wasn't even like, go ahead.
I'm with Latia, okay? You better be sure as shit about me. Point blank, period. Especially when you've been so sure about me since day, what was that, 2, 3, she said? There's no way. The producers did not even have the opportunity to give us a real love story here because he was so in Latia's face.
No, I agree with that.
The producers couldn't even make us buy it. We couldn't buy Juliana and Grant for anything. For 2 cents in a pack of bubble gum, we couldn't buy it. We couldn't get behind it, right? Besides just the fact that everybody just loved Juliana because she's the girl next door and she's all bubbly and great. But in terms of their actual love story, there was nothing the producers could have sold us. And so, hell yeah, you better be sure about me.
Yeah, like I think that initially we thought it was gonna be the Mormon thing, remember?
Yeah.
Because that made the most sense, but it really was this fun factor. And I think I had mentioned that in one of the previous episodes, that I think that he views life with Latia as very cookie cutter, and the life that he could have with Juliana would be very like, she's gonna party with him. Juliana's gonna do what he wants. If he's not ready, she's not going to move forward. She's not going to press it. And so I think ultimately for where he is, I will say that I think that he would have a much more fulfilling experience with Juliana, because he's just not ready where Latia is. And so I think he would have felt a little bit dragged, but I think it may be something he regrets later, to be honest.
I think that so
it's like one of those things when people have like a really quality woman and they're just not ready for her, and then once they get to that space, they're like, dang. Yeah. But he sees something in her, because that we are not seeing, or that those who don't see it don't see, because some people see it.
Yeah, I have actually experienced a guy telling me that another girl was just more fun and made him feel more youthful, and I was too serious, and he came back around because of it. It was like, okay, yeah, I had my fun, and now I want, you know what I'm saying, the serious. And it's like, yeah, it's the girl who got away because he was looking to have all of this fun. And I hate that when a woman specifically is ready to settle down and like have a family, that to sometimes a man that means they can't have fun. Because I follow Latia on social media and the girl looked like she always out. Okay, look like she always having a good time, always with her friends. So it's like you just equate the fact that you guys are having these more serious conversations
Mhm.
and these deeper level conversations about values and what the future looks
Mhm.
like to this means like we just like can't have fun, especially when you're in this truncated process where we need to get to the nitty gritty. There will be time
Mhm.
for fun, but we do need to make sure that we're aligned on these future things, these future steps that we'll be making as a couple. And it's like now you've missed out because you're so worried about what this intensity and this very intense process meant when you could have been
Mhm.
you could have had the full package. Because Latia doesn't seem
Yeah.
like she's a boring person to me.
Yeah, and I didn't really see all the fun they was having with him and Juliana, but I also think maybe the families played a role in it,
Yeah.
because her family does seem like they throw down. Like they
Yeah,
seem like
yeah, yeah,
they
yeah,
got throw a
yeah,
good little
yeah, yeah.
shindig.
I want to go
But
to Juliana's family shindig. I know they're having a good time. They
I
might in
mean,
there be
I mean,
playing. They might be playing spades. What you
I
think?
know they
They
might be
might
playing too.
be playing spades.
But at Latia's house, they not doing none of that shoot. So I think that also played into the fun factor, because like Juliana don't seem that much more fun to me than Latia.
At
Latia
all.
just seems, sweet and nice. They both do. She just seems more mature than Juliana.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on Grant, or additional thoughts on Grant in general?
One thing that really stuck out to me was the way his parents were talking about like this deep, dark depression that he can get
Mm,
into. I was very curious to know what that looks like and how that might affect relationships in the future. And if also part of him choosing Juliana was knowing that she's also gone through something similar in terms of being in like a
mm,
dark place because she talked about
mm,
it. And if that made
mm,
it seem like, okay, like if I do end up in that space again, I know Juliana has exposure to it. Like she can empathize
mm,
with me a little bit more in that way versus Latia. And not saying Latia's never had, challenging moments. The girl has
mm.
grown up without, what I'm saying, her biological father. So I can only imagine, you know what I'm saying? But I do wonder if that had also played a role in him feeling like, okay, maybe I'm a little bit more safe emotionally, like for the worst parts of myself. And I always
Mhm.
have to be my best when I'm with Latia.
But that's an internal, that highlights even further internal work, because
Yeah.
like you should be able to stand in front of anybody and feel like however you are, however you show up, that you're worthy, that you're not needing to put on. You know what I mean? Like who you are is enough as you are. I feel like that kind of shows that he might just need a little bit more inner work if that's the situation. Any thoughts on Juliana?
Yes. I was I don't want to say surprised because I feel like Juliana has been like this very carefree spirit the entire season. Um
Mhm.
but I was a little surprised when they asked like, "Do you have any questions for Grant?" And he said she was like, "No. This is his process. I wanted to give him grace to do
At the
um
reunion, we had the finale
yeah,
part,
yeah,
the last.
yeah." And I felt like it was interesting because as a partner, right? Like I wouldn't want my person to stand 10 toes down
Mhm.
behind me, especially in such an intense situation. So I applauded her for that. I applauded her
Mhm.
for we're not about to get into this nitty gritty. I'm not about to
For sure.
participate in y'all dogging my man out for his decision. He chose me and it is what it is. So I was like, kudos to you, Juliana. At the
Yeah.
same time, because you guys aren't on a TV show and we want to know what the process was like, I was like, just give us a little something. Like, what were those conversations like? How did he share this with you? And how do you feel having watched it back now?
Yeah, yeah. That's what somebody was noting, like how it wasn't something that was directly asked of her. Like, how do you feel about his, situation with, Latia, and how it all played out? I feel for her a little bit, like, because I feel like she didn't ask to be put in that situation. But you have to be, like I said before, you have to be a little kind of devastated watching it, because it's like your kids, your, potential kids. All these folks are watching this, and you have to stomach that, That's kind of
Right.
like unfortunate.
I was
But yeah.
wondering what her parents thought watching it
Mm.
back.
I feel like there were words that were said, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like if I was her, I probably would say like, no, I don't feel any type of way. I feel like he literally had people wonder what their man's gonna do with women out here in the world. And he literally had 20, 25 beautiful women, and he still picked me, even if it was difficult at the end. He made sure he was sure, and he picked me. And so I feel comfortable in that. I understood what the process was. Like, I would do something like that. She kind of seemed to
Yeah.
be on that side of that. But it's just she's dealt a difficult hand, so it's
Yeah.
not really anything she can do
She
other than
is
that.
it is a difficult hand. At the same time, I was thinking in my mind like, is this a representation of Juliana repeating old patterns?
Mm,
Right? Like, because she mentioned I think at some point that she struggled with staying with somebody who wasn't good for her, and like trying to get him to, I think she said like, pick her or choose her or something to that extent. I
show up
could
early,
be,
show up
yeah, I
early. That
could
wasn't.
be chopping and screwing that, but that's what I had got from what she said. And so I'm wondering if this idea of being chosen out of 25 women kind of like fed
Valid.
that, yeah,
Yeah.
validated that for her in a sense. And it's like, well, I'm just gonna be okay with it because he chose me, so it is what it is. When how someone chooses you also matters. It's not just about being chosen. And so I was like, are we repeating old patterns, Juliana, just a little bit? Like, is this still a time? Yes, it was the
Mhm.
process, and so we're going to acknowledge that this was the process, but is there also space in your own personal development to hold Grant accountable as well for letting Latia down like that, right? Like, because this is still how he chose to treat the other women in
Yeah.
this process, and
Yeah.
also the other women's family, because again, he had this conversation with Latia's mother. And so, was there some conversations around accountability for that instead of, well, I was chosen, so
Yeah.
hello, like,
No, that's real. That's very real. I thank you for bringing up that point, because too too many times it doesn't happen. Like, people be like, "Oh, that's how he treated you," or "That's how he treated her." Like, and it's like, no, that's him.
that's
So
him.
address it, and be clear with him about it. So yeah.
Alrighty, so let's go ahead and move into Litia and Juliana meeting Grant's family. How did we feel? Who we want to start with? Let's start with Latia. She went first, anyways.
Yeah, so like Latia's visit, I was excited for two things of note. The sister said, "I liked you from the beginning." And as a sister, I gave that a lot of weight, because if the sister really liked her and liked her from the beginning, I think she saw what we saw, in
Mm-hmm.
Latia. And so she didn't necessarily say that with Juliana. I didn't really hear her say anything. Of course it's editing, but I didn't see her say anything. But she did look a little stone faced in the audience when they were out there.
So
So I was
did his mother.
she that wasn't to the mom. I like it seemed like in Latia's visit, everybody loved it. It seemed like the mom was very open to Latia, and receiving her. So
Absolutely. And when she said she loves God, I said, okay, so the religion is not a piece here. And I had a sigh
right.
of relief when that
Yeah.
clip of his mom saying, I am asking you to move away from that, was not in Latia's visit. I was like, whew, thank
Yeah.
you, God. Seriously, because I was like, that is going to just send it over the edge and be the
Yeah.
cherry on top.
Yeah.
But yeah, I loved how in the confessional with Grant's father, he said Latia is going to fight for her marriage. I think they were
Mhm.
sensing Latia was ready. Like, and as she was going to hold Grant accountable to his growth and sticking together and having that family that even Grant really desired to have. So yeah, it
Mhm.
was all good vibes for me. I was like, this, I felt it perfectly.
Yeah. I didn't have any bad thoughts at all.
What
Mhm.
did you think about Juliana's visit?
I thought it was gonna be the undoing of her, like her being so honest about like, oh, I'm not there yet. But it almost could have been, but like it wasn't. And I was a little unclear as to why immediately after he said it, then she's like, oh, I'm there. I expected her to really stick to that statement that she wasn't sure. But it was like as soon as he said it, she's like, I say it too. And I love you back. So I
because
was
she
like,
is go with the flow. You're choosing me? You're choosing me? Okay, yes, I love you too.
yeah, yeah. I ain't got time. I ain't got time. But yeah, that makes sense. If that's like what's going on with her, that pattern makes a little bit of sense. But yeah, I thought that was just gonna be a moment that was gonna, not other the mom was gonna feel like, I'm not too fond of it. And judging from the mom's reactions, I do feel like she wasn't as fond of Juliana as she was Latia, just because of what she said. But I also just her body language a little bit too. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm reading
I
into it
think
too much.
well what something that stuck out that his mom said about Juliana was, I can see that he brings her peace. And so when she said that, I was like, okay, so maybe she's picking up that sense of like ease that he has with
Mhm.
Juliana a little bit. And in that moment, I felt like, okay, this is enough that a mom needs to see, even though I think she still would have thought Latia was the better pick, right? In terms of like longevity, especially
Mhm.
as a person who's been married and has had like marital struggles, right? Like, as a mom, I would only imagine that you want your son to pick the one that's going to go the distance, despite this,
Mhm.
okay, it's a little bit of peace for now, okay. But I do
Yeah,
think, yeah,
you want the one that's like that's the full that's
a
she's the
fool,
woman. She's
yes,
the woman
yes,
full
yes. The
strong. She's gonna
conviction
have
is
you, you're
behind
not
it.
ready now.
Yes.
Like, yeah, and it's so interesting, like as being a sister to two brothers, like it is
Same.
very interesting. Oh, do you have two
I do have
brothers?
two brothers.
Oh, why I didn't know
Yes,
that?
and I be real. My older brother, I'm like, who is this? So I'm right
Oh
there
my
with you. When his sister said, I liked you from
goodness.
the start, I said, yes, honey, because the read is the read, okay?
Yes, yes, yes. So I don't know. It's a different vibe when your sister is singing. I mean, moms too, of course, but like there's a level of like edgy, relatability that your sibling has that your parent may not like be able to tap into. So I like that. What do you think about like the dad and his influence on Grant? Because I was very surprised that he was the father who Grant ran to versus his mom in that time period, because it was just like the dad has a lot to do with why he is, you know, in these sort of traumatic experiences in life.
I mean, I feel like it goes into that bucket of we run to the ones who hurt us the most. Um,
Interesting.
and so I think it was that, but also, so in the preview clip that we had during the women tell all, I believe it was, or
Okay.
was it the fantasy suites? One of them. Whenever we got the clip of them going home, and the dad was like, how are you going to choose? And Grant was like, I don't know. Like, you could just tell there was like a little bit of like frustration in that exchange, a little bit. And I think Grant is used to being the parent of his father a little bit.
Mm,
And so I feel like when you're in that position, sometimes when you don't want too much judgment, when you don't want too much opinion, you're going to go to the person that might give you a little bit more of what you feel like is what you want to hear. However, in
interesting.
that moment that he had the conversation with his dad, I love that his dad took the opportunity to just like reaffirm him and say, like, I am not leaving you anymore. I'm here.
Mhm.
I'm here to
Yeah.
stay.
Right.
I'm going to be your father. I support you. I love the man that you've become, despite the things that I know I am responsible for. I was like, what a beautiful display of healing and reconnection, that goes beyond words. Honestly, I was in tears.
Were
Um,
you?
I was
Interesting.
like, OMG, because There was a moment there where Grant was like about to lean in and like cut him off a little bit. And in my head, I wanted to like jump through the screen and be like, Grant, no, like give him this moment to speak. Cause I could just like feel it coming. And then his daddy just outpour with all of that. And I was like, this is what Grant needed to just release. To release and just go after what he wants a little bit. And when they started to talk about Juliana and how, you know, he could have fun with her, Latia wants the kids, and he was like, don't put yourself in a box. I feel like that was like all Grant needed to say. You know what? I'm going to go with the fun. Let me step into the fun. Let me enjoy life a little bit.
And I think his dad is like very like trying to make amends and things like that. I think his dad has the best intention for him. You can clearly see that. You can see his dad loves him. But I guess his dad's advice would not have been the one I took.
Yeah.
You know, I would have leaned on mom a little bit more. Well, really sister, you know, because it seems like sister was there. I would have leaned on that a little bit more as opposed to the dad in that last pivotal moment. But you know, teach his own. He's a man, and I think his dad does really love him and really is trying to do the best he can for him.
Yeah.
It's not a question about intention. I just wonder sometimes about capacity.
Right,
you know,
right,
as
right.
far as where he is in his journey, I don't know. He seems to be at least going in the right direction with his healing journey, but there's a lot to heal from when you're drug addiction.
And you know, I kind of took that moment because I know I just said a lot. I took that moment more of a moment of like reconnection and bonding and growth in their relationship more than a moment of like influence or advice giving. Right? I think it was more so like a cathartic release that was necessary for the both of them. So that Grant could just like, you know, spread his wings a little bit. Because I was wondering after that conversation, like, okay, did this give him the freedom to feel like he doesn't have to go with the more serious and like put together option, that he can just have fun and go with the thing that might be a little bit more edgy in that regard. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, do we have any closing thoughts on the season? Like, how do you rate it as a whole? And any overarching comments about the show?
Yeah, as a reintroduction back into the show, I haven't watched in years. Not too keen on wanting to watch again. Really just showed up because it was Grant and the cast was very diverse. And so wanted to support that. But I think the premise of the show overall isn't something that I'm like 100% interested in to want to kind of do like a deep dive into. Now, in terms of Bachelor in Paradise, if more of the ladies that I liked from this season go to Paradise, I would be interested in watching just to see what that's like, because I haven't watched Bachelor in Paradise in a while either, and I feel like just with how this season ended, that Bachelor in Paradise might be pretty good. This next season, we'll see. But yeah, that's it for me.
Yeah, same. Like the season didn't make me want to, like as a new watcher, it didn't make me want to keep watching or anything like that. Like Love is Blind is my reality dating show. But yeah, that's pretty much it. It was a very engaging finale. In the sense that like I really was trying to see like, is he not about to pick Latia?
Right,
and then
right.
he did. Oh, okay. So it was kind of like a little bit of a letdown.
Yeah.
You know, it is. But yeah, thank y'all for rocking with us to the end. Thank y'all for rocking with us with this whole season. And let us know in the comments, like, what were you surprised by? What was your thoughts on everything? And then also recap, if you haven't seen our other recaps, go back and watch them. Like, we recapped the whole season. And so let us know in the comments what your thoughts are and what you think. So for the last time for The Bachelor season 29, we are done.
Bye.